This broadcast is part of a fictional program. The station and events depicted are not real. This audio is created for narrative and entertainment purposes only.
This is LWB 1713 AM last warning broadcast. If you can hear this transmission, conditions have already escalated beyond control. Marcus Vale, Building Operations, St. Aldrich Regional. It's 11:47 p.m. and I'm starting this log because the protocol says I have to, and tonight the protocol is the only thing I trust. Let me tell you how a normal night sounds, so you'll know when it stops being normal. The HVAC on the third floor ticks twice when it cycles. The ice machine in the east break room drops a load every 40 minutes or so. The elevators settle. Somewhere a call bell goes off, and a nurse silences it before it finishes the second chime. That's the music of this place. I've worked here 11 years. I could conduct it with my eyes closed. I run the overnight from the operations booth in sub-level 1. Not glamorous. I monitor the cameras, the fire panel, the door access, the page system. If a light flickers in radiology, I'm the one who knows before the doctor does. If a door won't latch, that's me. I am, on paper, the least important person in this building. In practice, I'm the one awake when no one else wants to be. I want that on the record, because what I'm about to describe, I described to myself first as a malfunction. That's the honest order of it. I did not walk into my shift looking for anything strange. I walked in with a thermos of coffee and a crossword I never finish. The thing started small. It always does. That's not me being dramatic. That's just how cameras work. You notice the small wrong thing first. Camera 14 covers the long corridor outside the east stairwell, second floor. Empty hallway, polished floor. The kind of fluorescent light that makes everyone look a little dead. At 11:31 p.m. on that camera, I saw a shadow stretch across the floor. A person-shaped shadow, long, the way shadows get under overhead light, stretching out from the corner by the stairwell door. Cast by nobody. The corner was empty. The hallway was empty, but the shadow was there, dark and clean and exactly the shape of a man standing just out of frame. I did what you do. I assumed a camera glitch, a smudge on the lens, a compression artifact, a reflection from the window at the end of the hall. I made a note in the maintenance log. Camera 14, possible image fault, second floor east. Routine. Boring. The most boring thing in the world. Then, 4 minutes later at 11:35, a man walked around that corner. Janitorial, pushing a cart. He stepped into exactly the patch of floor where the shadow had been waiting for him, and the shadow slid up off the ground and became his. I'm going to keep logging. Stay with me. Here's the part where I tell you I'm reasonable. I need you to believe I'm reasonable, because everything I say after this depends on it. I rewound the footage. We keep a 30-day buffer on a local drive, and I scrubbed back to 11:29 before the shadow appeared, and I watched it happen 3 times. Each time it was the same. Empty corner. Then the shadow, lying across the tile like something poured. Then 4 minutes of nothing. Then Hector, that's the janitor, Hector Salas. I called down and confirmed it was him. Hector turns the corner and the shadow doesn't react to him the way a shadow reacts to a body. A real shadow is born the instant the body enters the light. This one was already there. He stepped into it and it attached. You can explain a lot of things if you try hard enough. I tried hard. I considered that maybe Hector had been standing just out of frame, and what I saw at 11:31 was his shadow leaking around the corner from where he stood. That would be ordinary. That would be physics. So I checked camera 13, which covers the stairwell landing on the other side of that door. If he'd been standing there, he'd have been on 13. He wasn't. Camera 13 shows the landing empty until 11:34, when the stairwell door opens and Hector comes through, pushing his cart, having ridden the service elevator up from sub-level 1. I have him on the elevator camera too. At 11:31, when his shadow was already lying in that second-floor hallway waiting for him. The man himself was one floor below me, in an elevator, going up. His shadow beat him to the second floor by 4 minutes. I want to be careful with my words, and I'm not telling you a ghost story. I'm telling you what 3 cameras agree on. The cameras don't have an imagination. They don't get tired at the end of a long shift. They just record what light does, and tonight, light did something I can't account for. I called Hector again. I asked him, did anything feel strange in that hallway? He laughed at me, little. He said the floor was cold. He said his knees were bad. He said, why did I see a ghost on the cameras? And I said, no, sensor fault, sorry to bug you. And I let him go back to work, because what was I going to say? It's 11:53 now. I've got the second floor east corridor up on my main monitor, and I'm just watching it. Empty hallway, polished floor, dead light. And I'm telling myself, one camera, one glitch, one tired man at the end of a shift seeing patterns. That's all this is. Except I've been doing this 11 years, and I have never once called a janitor at midnight to ask if he saw a ghost. I'm going to keep the cameras up. I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm going to wait and see if it happens again. It happened again. I'm noting the time. 12:08 a.m. This time I caught it from the start because I was watching for it. Camera 22, the main second-floor nurses' station corridor. Busier area, there's always 1 or 2 staff drifting through, even at night. I had it up on the secondary monitor. While I did my hourly door check log, at 12:04, a shadow appeared on the wall. Not the floor this time. The wall beside the supply alcove at the height a person's shadow would fall if the light caught them from the corridor. A woman's shape. I could tell from the shoulders the suggestion of hair pulled back. It didn't move. It just rested there against the paint. The way your shadow rests against a wall when you're standing still reading a chart, but there was no woman. The corridor was empty. The shadow stood reading a chart that wasn't there, beside a person who wasn't there for almost 3 full minutes. I started a stopwatch on my phone. I'm a creature of procedure. If something's going to happen on a schedule, I want to know the schedule. At 12:07, Diane Okafor, charge nurse. Second floor, I know her well. Good woman. Brings me cookies at Christmas. Diane walked into frame from the far end of the corridor. She came down toward the supply alcove. She stopped right where the shadow was. She reached up to the shelf. And as she settled into that exact pose, the shadow on the wall and the woman became one thing. Her shadow, reading the chart she now pulled from the shelf. 3 minutes and some seconds, closer to the first one than I'd like. Now here's what I keep snagging on, and I want to say it plainly so you understand the shape of the problem. The shadow wasn't a warning of something that might happen. It was a recording of something that did happen. Played early, the pose matched, the position matched, down to the tilt of her head. Whatever I was looking at on that wall at 12:04 was Diane Okafor at 12:07, arriving ahead of herself. The shadow knew where she was going to stand before she did. I sat there with my cold coffee, and I tried to think like an engineer because that's what calms me down. Engineers don't get scared, they get specifications. So, 2 events. Hector, 4 minutes. Diane, 3 minutes. The lead time is shrinking. Or the sample's too small to say. 2 points don't make a trend. I told myself that out loud, in the booth, alone. 2 points don't make a trend. But I'd started a log, and the log wanted a 3rd point. I pulled up every camera I have. 41 of them, the whole building, tiled across my wall of monitors like a quilt of empty rooms and quiet halls. The lobby, the ER waiting room, half full of the usual late-night misery, the chapel, the loading dock, the long throat of the parking garage. I scanned all of them, every floor, every corner, and I found the 3rd point faster than I wanted to. Faster than 3 minutes. It was already waiting. Camera 9 is the parking garage, level P2, the far row near the elevator lobby. At 12:14 a.m., there is a shadow standing between two parked cars. It's a man, tall. One hand seems to be raised. Near his head, the posture of someone holding a phone to his ear, or scratching his temple, I can't tell. The garage lights are sodium orange and harsh, and they throw hard shadows, so this one is crisp enough that I can see he's wearing something with a hood, the silhouette bunched at the neck. There is no man. P2 is empty. I've got camera 8 and camera 10 flanking it, and the whole level is dead. Just rows of cars sitting cold under the orange light. I started my stopwatch the second I saw it. I'm not waiting 3 minutes this time to be surprised. I want to see who arrives. And while I'm watching, this is the part the shadow moves. Not like a person moves. It doesn't take a step. It doesn't walk. It shifts. The way a shadow shifts when the thing casting it turns slightly. The raised hand lowers and the head tilts. Tiny adjustments. The restless little motions a person makes while they wait for something. Except there's no person, just the dark shape rehearsing a man's boredom against the concrete. It's getting ready. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a shadow getting ready to be worn. I called the security desk in the main lobby. Tonight, that's Ruben. And Ruben answered on the second ring. And I asked him, keeping my voice as flat as I could, is anyone scheduled to be in the P2 garage right now? Any patient, any visitor, anybody walking to their car? He said no. He said the garage is locked down, netted down to badge access after 11. He said, why, Marcus? You see somebody you don't like? I said no. I said, I think I've got a lighting fault on P2, and I'm going to come look at it myself. And Ruben said the thing that's sitting in my chest right now. He said, funny, my monitor down here has been showing a guy standing by the P2 elevators for like 10 minutes. I figured he was waiting on a ride, but when I zoom in, there's nobody there. So it's not my cameras. It's not a smudge on one lens. Ruben's seeing it on a different system, a different feed, a different screen from the other side of the building. It's the garage that's wrong. Or it's the building. Or it's the night. I'm going to P2. I'll keep this open. I'm narrating this as I go because I don't want to lose the thread. And because honestly, hearing my own voice in this empty stairwell is keeping me steady, so bear with me. There's going to be footsteps and breathing on this part of the recording. That's just me. I took the east stairs down from the booth, sub-level 1 to the garage. The stairwell smells like every hospital stairwell. Cold concrete and old paint and something underneath it that's almost sweet. The cleaning chemical they use on the landings. My footsteps are loud. I'm aware of them. In a way you usually aren't. You don't normally listen to yourself walk. Here's a thing I noticed on the stairs, and I'm putting it in the log even though it might be nothing. When I turned on the second landing, my own shadow swung across the wall the way it's supposed to, following the bare bulb overhead. Ordinary. Obedient. Lagging behind me by exactly the amount a shadow should lag, which is to say, not at all. A shadow doesn't lag, it's instantaneous, it's just light being blocked. And I caught myself staring at it, checking it, making sure mine was behaving. It was. Is. My shadow is fine. I keep glancing at it. It keeps doing what shadows do. I'm at the P2 door now. Badge reader's green. Going in. Okay, I'm in the garage. The orange light is exactly as ugly in person as it is on the camera. It's quiet down here, in the way that big concrete spaces are quiet, where the silence has a kind of pressure to it, a hum of nothing. I'm walking toward the far row, camera 9's row, the one with the shadow. I can see the spot, between a gray sedan and a white pickup near the elevator lobby. That's where it was standing. And okay, I want to describe this accurately. There's nothing there now. No shadow, no man. Just the gap between two cars and the orange light pooling on the concrete. Perfectly ordinary, casting nothing, holding nobody. But I checked my watch when I came through the door. From the moment I first saw that shadow on camera 9 to right now is about 11 minutes. The Hector lead time was 4. Diane was 3. If this thing was running on the same clock, somebody should have arrived in this spot 8 minutes ago, slotted into that waiting silhouette, and walked away wearing it. Nobody did. The garage has been locked since 11. So what happens to a shadow that arrives early when its owner never comes? I'm standing in the spot now, right where it stood. The concrete's cold through my shoes. Above me, the elevator lobby's glass doors are dark, and I can see my own reflection in them. A tired man in a gray uniform, alone in a parking garage at midnight talking into his phone. And behind my reflection, in the glass, the elevator floor indicator is moving. The numbers climbing. P2, P1. L, it's going up. Empty elevator called by nobody, rising through the building. I didn't call it. Ruben said the garage was locked. There's no one down here but me. I'm going to walk back to the stairs now. I'm not going to take the elevator. I want to say that's a practical decision, but it isn't. It's just that I don't want to be inside a box that something empty decided to ride. Going back up to the booth. The lead time is the thing I can't stop thinking about. 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and the one I just missed entirely. It's getting faster, or it's getting hungrier. I don't know which is worse. I'm back in the booth, doors locked, 41 monitors glowing at me, and in the time it took me to walk down to that garage and back, call it 20 minutes, the situation got away from me. There are shadows on 6 cameras now. Let me go through them, because saying them out loud is how I keep them from becoming a blur of panic. Procedure. Procedure is the rope you hold when the floor is gone. Camera 14. Second floor east. There's a shadow at the far end now. A small one, child-sized, sitting on the floor with its back against the wall, knees up. Just sitting. Camera 20-toe. Second floor nurse's corridor. 2 shadows this time. Close together. The shapes of 2 people standing facing each other. The way you stand when you're having a quiet, serious conversation. In a hallway at 1 a.m. Camera 31. The ER waiting room, and this one made my stomach turn. There are shadows mixed in among the real people. The waiting room's maybe a third full, 10, 12 souls, and those awful chairs. And cast across the floor and walls among them are extra shadows, ones that don't belong to anyone in the room. People sitting in empty chairs, someone standing by the vending machine that no one's standing at. The real people don't see them. You can't see your own floor that closely, but on my overhead camera, I can see the whole grid of them, the living and the early, all tangled together. Camera 5, the chapel, 1 shadow, kneeling at the rail, alone in an empty room, head bowed. Camera 17, 3rd floor ICU corridor, a shadow standing outside a patient room, just outside the door, not moving. Camera 2, the main lobby, right behind Ruben's desk, a shadow standing at the desk, leaning on it, the way a visitor leans when they're asking a question. I called Ruben. I said, "Ruben, don't freak out, but is anybody standing at your desk?" And there was a pause, a long one, and he said, "Oh, no, but Marcus, the temperature just dropped in here, like somebody left a door open, and I keep feeling like there's somebody right in front of me asking me something, and I can't." And then he stopped, and he said in a smaller voice, "There's nobody there." I told him to stay at his desk. I don't know why I told him that. It felt like the wrong advice and the only advice at the same time. Here's what I figured out. Watching all 6 at once, with my stopwatch running on each. The lead times are still shrinking, but they're not all the same. The chapel shadow's been there 9 minutes and nobody's come. The ICU shadow, maybe 6. but the nurses' corridor pair, those two resolved while I was looking. Diane and a young resident, Dr. Pell, walked into frame from opposite ends, met in the middle, and stood there talking, and their shadows were already on the wall waiting to receive them. Lead time on that one, under 90 seconds. 90 seconds. We started the night at 4 minutes, and the child sitting against the wall on camera 14. There are no children admitted on the second floor tonight. I checked the census. Pediatrics is on 4. There is no child who could walk around that corner and step into that small sitting shadow. Some of these have owners coming, and some of them don't. Some of them are shadows of people who are on their way, and some are shadows of people who aren't in this building at all, and maybe never will be, and I don't understand what those ones are for. I'm going to call the mayor of the nursing supervisor. This is past me now. This needs to go up the chain. There's a shadow on camera 22 standing right outside the booth door. I need to talk about the shadow outside my door before anything else, because I dealt with it, and I need you to know how. Camera 22 doesn't cover my booth. I misspoke in the last breath of that recording. I was looking at the hallway camera, nearest sub-level 1, camera 38, and there was a shadow on the wall directly outside the operations booth, adult, standing square to the door, facing it, the posture of a person waiting to come in. I have a window in the booth door, wire-reinforced glass, and I went and looked through it into the corridor. Empty corridor, bright, nobody. But on the camera, the shadow was right there, on the wall beside the door, in a spot I should have been able to see through that window. I looked at the wall with my own eyes through the glass. Nothing. I looked at the camera feed of the same wall, a man's shadow, waiting, so the shadows don't show up to the naked eye. Only the cameras see them coming. That's the rule I've got now. Written down, underlined, the eye sees the present. The cameras see the arrival. I don't know what that means about cameras. I don't want to think about what that means about cameras. I called the nursing supervisor, that's Anita Reyes tonight, runs the whole house after midnight. Sharpest person in the building. I told her, fast and flat, what I had. Shadows on the cameras with no source. Showing up before people arrive and lead time collapsing. People not on the census. I told her I knew how it sounded. She didn't laugh. That's the part that scared me. Anita's the type who'd laugh, who'd tell me to lay off the coffee. Instead, she went quiet, and then she said, "Marcus, we've had 4 codes called in the last 40 minutes. 4 codes, cardiac arrests. On a normal night, you might get one." She said 2 were on the second floor, and 2 in the ICU. She said the second floor ones were in rooms right where, and I'm looking at my camera log as she's saying this, right where 2 of my shadows had been, standing outside the doors. The shadow outside the ICU room on camera 17, the one that just stood there not moving. There's a code being run behind that door right now. I asked her, "Careful, was anyone standing outside those rooms before the codes? Any staff lingering, any visitor?" She said no. She said the strange thing, the thing she called me about before I even called her, was that her nurses kept reporting they felt like someone was standing beside them, in the rooms, at the bedsides, a presence at the patient's shoulder, and then the monitor would alarm. I'm not going to tell you the shadows are killing people. I don't know that. I can't know that. The hospital at 1 a.m. is full of fragile hearts, and any night could spike. Maybe the shadows aren't causing anything. Maybe they're just showing up where death was always going to be. Maybe they're the building's way of flinching before the blow lands, but I can't shake the order of it. The shadow comes first, then the person, or the event, or the end. The shadow is always early. Anita's calling the administrator on call, and the house physician. She told me to keep watching the cameras and call out anything before it happens. She wants me to use the early shadows as a warning system. God help me, I think I'm going to. And this is the part of the night where I stopped being a man watching a screen and became something else. An instrument, a forecaster of a weather no one's ever charted. Here's how it worked for about 30 minutes. And I want it on the record because it's the closest thing to control I had all night. I watched the 41 feeds. When a shadow resolved, when it sharpened, took a clear pose, settled into a spot, I'd call it, into Anita on the open line, we kept running. I'd give her the location and the read. Camera 17, ICU, shadow at the door of bed 4, standing not moving. And she'd send someone. And more often than not, by the time they got there, something was wrong. A patient turning, a line pulled, a heart deciding. We got ahead of 2 of them. 2. A woman in the ICU whose shadow appeared at her door, and whose heart Anita's team caught on the way down instead of after. A man on the 2nd floor, the same. I want to hold on to those 2. Whatever else I tell you tonight, those 2 are real, and they're alive because a shadow was early, and I called it in. But here's what the instrument also told me. The reading I didn't want. The shadows weren't only at sick beds. They were spreading into the parts of the building where nothing medical happens. The chapel, the lobby, the cafeteria, dark and shuttered, where a single shadow now sat at a table for one. The shadows in the ER waiting room had multiplied. There were more shadows than people now, the whole floor crowded with the dark shapes of arrivals, sitting in every chair, standing along the walls. A waiting room packed for a night that hadn't come yet, and the lead time, across all of them, had collapsed to almost nothing. The early window was gone. By the time a shadow was clear enough to read, its owner was already walking into frame. My warning system was running out of warning. Anita came on the line, and her voice had changed. She said the off-duty staff, they'd called in extra hands for the codes, were arriving at the building, pulling into the garage, coming through the lobby. And she said, "Marcus, pull up the lobby, tell me what you see." I pulled up camera 2. The lobby was full of shadows, dozens, standing, walking, clustered at the desk, streaming toward the elevators. A whole crowd of dark shapes moving through an empty room. And the glass front doors opened, and the off-duty staff started coming in. Real people, tired, pulling off coats, 6, 8, 10 of them. And every single one of them walked into a shadow that was already waiting in the doorway, stepped into it, wore it. The shadows weren't appearing seconds early anymore. They were already inside, standing in the lobby before the doors even opened, waiting for the people who were still out in the dark, still walking up from the parking garage, still alive and ordinary, and one step away from the room where their shadow already stood. The building knew who was coming before they came. Chapter 3. The Whole City. I had been telling myself a story all night, and the story was, this is a St. Aldrich problem. Something's wrong with this building. Bad wiring, a bad night, a haunted hospital. Fine but contained. Mine. The wall of this place were the walls of the problem. That story died at 1:52 a.m. Anita patched the on-call administrator into our line, a man named Croft, and Croft had been on the phone with the county. And Croft said, in the careful voice of a man reading something he doesn't believe off a screen, that we weren't the only ones calling. Dispatch was flooded. Not with emergencies exactly. With reports. People calling 911 to say there was someone in their house. They could see them on the baby monitor, on the doorbell camera, on the laptop they'd left running. A figure in the nursery, a man on the porch, someone standing at the foot of the bed, and every caller said the same thing when the operator asked them to go look. There's nobody there. I'm staring right at the spot. The camera shows him. My eyes don't. Croft said the doorbell camera companies were having an outage that wasn't an outage. Servers fine, cameras fine. They were just all showing people who weren't there. Whole neighborhoods of porches with visitors standing on them, and the porches, to anyone who opened the door, empty. I pulled up a news stream on my phone, the local affiliate. They had a reporter live outside the station, and behind her, On the building's own security feed that they'd put up on screen as B-roll, you could see the parking lot. And the parking lot was full of shadows, walking between cars, standing at the entrance, a crowd of arrivals with no one to own them yet. The reporter didn't seem to know it was on screen behind her. She was talking about the 911 surge, the camera glitch, the official statement that there was no cause for alarm. And behind her, soundless, the shadows kept gathering, and I watched a woman walk across the lot toward the station doors and step into one of them mid-stride, the way you step into your own front hall. It's everywhere. That's the thing I have to say plainly now. It is not this building. It is not this city. It is wherever there's a lens pointed at a place a person is going to be. And I started to understand the rule a little better, watching all of it at once. And I hate the understanding. The shadows aren't haunting locations. They're not tied to the dead, or to this hospital, or to anything I can wall off and contain. They are tied to people, to the simple fact of a person about to enter a space. The shadow is the person arriving early. The body is just the last part of you to show up. Croft asked me on the line in front of Anita the question I think everyone in the building was privately asking. He said, "Marcus, if the shadow comes first, and the shadow's already everywhere, then what's the body for?" I didn't answer him. I don't have an answer. I have a stopwatch that's run out of time to measure, and 41 cameras showing me a building that's already full of everyone who's going to be in it. Then when I check on Ruben, he stopped answering the lobby line. I want to be calm about this. I'm going to try to be calm about this, because Ruben deserves a calm voice, and because if I'm not calm, I'm not useful, and useful is the only thing I have left to be. Ruben stopped answering the lobby line at 2:04. I called 4 times. I pulled up camera 2, the lobby, his desk. He was at his desk. I could see him, sitting in his chair, facing the doors, the way he always sits. So he was fine. I told myself he was fine. He was just away from the phone, or the line was down, or he was dealing with the off-duty staff still trickling in. But he wasn't moving. And the lobby around him, I have to describe it the way it was, even though describing it makes it real. The shadows had thinned out. All night the rooms had been filling with them more and more, a crowd of arrivals. But the lobby had gone the other way, almost empty of shadows now. Just Ruben at his desk and one shadow directly behind his chair, standing over him, bent slightly the way you bend over someone to read what they're reading, or to speak close to their ear. I zoomed camera 2 as far as it would go. The image got grainy and gray, and I looked at Ruben's face. What I could see of it, turned 3/4 toward the doors. His eyes were open. He was looking at something. He had the expression of a man, listening to someone he can't quite hear, patient, a little puzzled. The face you make when a stranger's telling you something important in a language that's almost yours. I shouted his name into the line. Even though I knew he couldn't hear me through a phone he wasn't holding, I keyed the building-wide page I have that I can talk to the whole hospital through the overhead speakers, and I said, "Ruben, this is Marcus. Pick up the desk phone. Pick it up right now." My voice went out over every speaker in the building, including the lobby. I watched him on the camera to see if he'd react. He didn't turn toward the speaker. He kept his face toward the doors, toward the dark glass and the empty lot beyond it. But his lips moved. He said something. To the shadow, or to the air, or to whatever the shadow was a forecast of. And then the shadow behind him straightened up and lifted and folded down over him, the way the garage shadow had lifted off the floor to put itself onto the man with the cart. It settled onto Ruben. And for 1 second on my grainy, zoomed-in feed, Ruben had 2 shadows his own under the desk lamp, and the new one laid over him like a coat. Then he stood up, and he walked out from behind the desk, across the lobby toward the front doors, calm, unhurried. He pushed through the glass doors into the lot, and he kept walking, out toward the rows of cars where all the shadows had gone, the ones that had emptied out of the building, toward the crowd of arrivals gathering on the asphalt under the lights. I lost him at the edge of the camera's view. I'm not calling that line again. There's no one to answer it. There's a desk in my lobby with a chair pushed back and a phone off its cradle, and a man somewhere out in a parking lot full of shadows walking toward the place his own arrived first. Anita's still on my other line. She's heard all of it. She's not talking either. Anita came back on the line at 2:19 and she had counted something. And I think the counting is the worst thing that happened all night. Worse than Reuben. And I'll tell you why. She'd had her clerks pull every camera the hospital has and count the shadows, not the people. The shadows. The arrivals. She wanted a number. Because Anita is like me. She reaches for a number when the floor gives out. The building holds about 400 people on a busy day. Tonight, night shift, we had maybe 90 souls in here. Staff, patients. The handful in the ER, the cameras counted over 2,000 shadows, 2,000 in a building of 90, standing in the halls, sitting in the waiting rooms, filling the chapel, lining the corridors, packed into rooms that were locked and dark. 2,000 arrivals for 90 bodies. And Anita said the thing that I've been circling all night and didn't want to land on. She said, "Marcus, it's not just the people who are coming tonight. I don't think it's tonight at all. I think it's everyone who's ever going to walk through this building. All of them at once. Every patient who will ever be admitted. Every visitor who will ever come up the elevator with flowers, and every nurse not yet hired. Every baby not yet born in the maternity ward. Every old man who'll come in through the ER on some night years from now and not go home. All of them. Arriving early, their shadows showing up first, the way a shadow has apparently always been the first part of a person to reach a place we just never had cameras, patient enough or nights wrong enough to catch it. That's the rule. That's the whole rule, and yes, I'm sick that I see it now. A shadow doesn't follow you. It precedes you. It's the part of you that goes ahead. On every ordinary day of your life, it arrives a fraction of an instant before your body, so close together that they look simultaneous. And you call that simultaneity now, and you build your whole life inside it. Tonight, the gap opened. The shadow and the body came unstuck, and in the space between them, all the arrivals that were ever going to happen came flooding in at once. Because to a shadow, there's no difference between 4 minutes early and 40 years early. Early is early. The future is just a room you haven't walked into yet, and your shadow's already standing in it. Anita asked me what we should do. She actually asked me, the lowest man in the building, the one who watches screens, and I realized she asked me because I'm the one who's been staring at the gap all night. I'm the one who learned its rules. I told her the only thing I had. I told her to get her people away from the cameras, cover the monitors, the baby monitors, the phones, anything with a lens. Because the lens is the thing that sees the arrival, and I have a feeling I can't prove it. It's the feeling of a tired man at the end of the worst night of his life. But the seeing is part of how it happens, that a shadow you can see coming is a shadow that's found you. Reuben saw his on the camera before it folded over him. I am looking at 41 monitors right now. I want to turn them off. I turned off the monitors. I want to describe what that was like, because it was harder than it sounds, and because I think it matters that I tell you I didn't want to do it. For 11 years, those screens have been my eyes. The whole point of me is that I see the building when no one else is looking. Turning them off felt like blinding myself on purpose, like cutting the one nerve that connects me to the place I am responsible for. My hand was on the master switch for a long time before I threw it, but I'd watched Reuben look at his shadow on a camera, and I'd watched it take him, and I had this thought, simple and animal, I don't want to see mine. So I killed the wall. 41 feeds, dark. The booth went dim, just the glow of the fire panel and the little green badge reader light on the door. Quiet. The HVAC ticked twice. The ice machine 2 floors up, dropped a load. I heard it through the building's bones. The ordinary music. For a second it was almost a normal night, and then I noticed the thing I should have noticed an hour ago. There's no camera in the booth. Never has been. Who watches the Watchmen? Right, it was always a joke. The operations booth is the one room in St. Aldrich with no lens in it. The one room where no shadow could arrive early, because there was nothing to see it arrive. That's why I've been safe in here all night, not because I'm strong or careful or built to refuse, because I happened to be sitting in the one blind spot in the building. The off-duty staff walked into their shadows in a lobby full of cameras. Reuben sat all night under the eye of camera 2, and I sat in the dark little room nobody ever bothered to watch, and the Gap couldn't find me because nothing was looking. Luck. Just luck, wearing a uniform. I'm telling you this because you're listening to this on a device with a camera in it. A phone, a laptop, a tablet propped on your nightstand. You're listening in the dark, maybe the way people listen to these things. I don't know if that matters. I can't prove any of what I'm telling you. I'm a maintenance man with a stopwatch and a bad night and a theory I built out of 41 screens I just turned off. But if you've got a camera pointed at you right now, in a quiet room, late, I'd cover it. I'd just cover it. Put something over the lens. It costs you nothing, and it would make a tired man feel better to think you did. Anita's gone quiet on the line. I'm going to check if she's still there. The line to Anita was open but silent. I could hear room tone on her end. The particular hush of the second-floor nursing station, an alarm chiming somewhere far off, the building breathing. So the line was up. She just wasn't talking. I said her name. Anita, Anita, are you there? 3 times, and then she answered, and her voice was wrong in the specific way Reuben's silence had been wrong. Slow, pleasant, a little far away. She said, I'm here, Marcus, I'm fine. There's just someone here who wants to talk to me. I asked her who. Careful, flat. She said, I don't know yet. She's standing right next to me. I can't quite. She's very close. She seemed nice. A pause. She knows my name. She knew before I told her. I told Anita to look at the wall, to find the nearest camera and look away from it, not at it. To cover her phone, I was talking fast and low, the way you talk to someone standing on a ledge, trying to keep my own fear out of it because fear is contagious and I needed her clear. She said, there's no camera here, Marcus. I'm at the station. There's no, oh. And she went quiet again. And then she said the way you'd point something out to a friend, mild and curious, the monitor, the patient monitor, little screen on the cart. There's a camera on the new ones. Did you know that? For the telehealth, there's a little camera right at the top, and it's pointed at me, and there's a woman on the screen standing behind me, but when I turn around, and the line cut to room tone. Not dead. Open. I could still hear the second floor, the alarm, the hush, the building, and then faint, picked up by her phone wherever she'd set it down. I heard Anita's footsteps walking away, unhurried. The same unhurried I'd watched in Reuben, walking off down the corridor toward the elevators, toward wherever the rest of them had gone. The lobby, the lot, the crowd of arrivals out under the lights. I didn't page her. I learned that. The page goes out over speakers, and the speakers are everywhere, but the looking is the thing. The looking is the door, and I couldn't make her stop looking, and I couldn't make the little camera on the cart stop showing her the woman who knew her name. So I let her walk. I'm so sorry, but I let her walk. It's 2:41 a.m. I am, as far as I can tell, the last waking person in this building who is still only carrying one shadow. 90 souls, and the ones I can account for have gone out into the dark to meet the early arrivals, and the rest aren't answering, and I am sitting in a small room with no camera in it, holding a phone to my ear, listening to an open line where a kind woman set her phone down and walked away from me. I have to decide what to do now. I don't want to, but the deciding is mine. Croft's question has been sitting in me this whole time, like a stone I swallowed. If the shadow comes first, and the shadow's already everywhere, then what's the body for? I think I have an answer now. I don't like it, but I've had 3 hours to watch this thing work. And a man who watches long enough starts to understand the machine, even if he never understands the mind behind it. I think the body is the part of you that decides whether to arrive. The shadow goes ahead. It always has. It's the intention of you, the promise of you, the part that the future can see coming. But it's just a shape. It can't open the door on its own. It waits. It stands in the lobby, in the nursery, at the foot of the bed, and it waits for the body to catch up and step into it and make the arrival real. Every day of your life, you've caught up to your own shadow without thinking, because the gap was a fraction of a second, and your body just kept walking the way bodies do. You never had to decide. The decision was too small and too fast to feel like a decision at all. Tonight, the gap opened wide, and in a wide gap, the catching up becomes a choice. Reuben chose. Anita chose. They saw the arrival waiting for them, and something in it knew their names and seemed nice and stood very close, and they walked the last few steps and stepped in and went out to join it. They weren't taken. That's the thing I keep wanting to say, and the thing I keep correcting, because taken is the easy word, and it's the wrong one. They walked, they were invited, and they were lonely or tired or curious in the specific human way that makes an open door look like a kindness, and they accepted. The body is for accepting or refusing. And I'm sitting here in the one room with no lens, and I have not seen my shadow waiting for me anywhere, because nothing in this room is looking, and so I have not been invited. The invitation needs a camera. The arrival needs to be seen to land. I could keep it that way. I could sit in this dark, blind room until the sun comes up, if the sun comes up, never looking at a screen, never letting a lens find me, and maybe I'd be the one man in St. Aldrich who walks out at shift change with only one shadow into whatever's left of the morning. Or there's a phone in my hand. It has a camera in it. I've been talking into it all night with the lens covered by my thumb, without even thinking about it. An animal covering its own eyes. And I keep thinking about Reuben's face on that grainy feed. The patient, puzzled, listening face. The face of a man being told something important, in a language almost his own. I keep thinking he didn't look afraid. I keep thinking Anita said the woman seemed nice and knew her name. I keep thinking about all the people I let walk tonight, and how I sat safe in the dark because a budget meeting 11 years ago decided this room didn't need a camera. I don't know what's out there, but I know I'm the last one not looking. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing in real time, so there's a record, so that whatever this recording becomes, it ends with the truth of a choice and not the silence of a man who just stopped talking. I have my phone in my hand. The recording is running. My thumb is over the lens. It's been over the lens, I realize, since I walked down to the garage hours ago. Had I been protecting myself without admitting I was protecting myself, which I think is the most human thing I've done all night. I'm not going out to the lot. I want that clear. I'm not walking out to the crowd under the lights to dissolve into it because it seemed nice and knew my name. If I go, I want to go as myself, deciding, and not as a man hypnotized by his own loneliness at 3 a.m, but I'm also not going to be the last man in a blind room, congratulating himself on his luck, while 90 people I'm responsible for stand out in the dark, waiting for a sunrise that I let myself doubt. So here's the deciding. Here's the whole of it. I'm going to look. Once. On purpose. I'm going to lift my thumb off the lens and turn the camera around and look at the room with it. The one room with no shadow in it, and I'm going to find out whether the gap can reach a man who chooses to be seen on his own terms, not ambushed by a doorbell camera, not folded over at a desk, not invited by something pretending to be kind, but a man holding his own lens, awake, knowing exactly what he's doing. Because here's what I think, and it's the last thing I've got. I don't think the arrivals are an ending. I watched 2 patients live tonight because their shadows came early enough to warn us. I think a shadow that arrives before you is the most ordinary thing in the world. It's just you, going ahead, the way you've always gone ahead. The horror tonight wasn't that the shadows came. It's that the gap opened wide enough for us to finally see the thing that was always true. That we are always, every one of us, slightly behind ourselves, catching up to an arrival we've already made. Reuben and Anita walked into the dark because they didn't understand that. They thought the arrival was a stranger. I'm not going to make that mistake. If there's a shape waiting for me when I turn this lens around, I'm going to know whose it is, and it's mine. It's always been mine. It went ahead, the way it always goes ahead, and it's been waiting in every room I've ever walked into a half second before I got there. Patient, faithful, exactly my shape. I'm lifting my thumb now. I'm turning the camera around and... Okay, let me tell you what I see. There's nothing there. I turned the camera around, slow, all the way around the booth, and the screen shows me an empty room. My desk, my cold coffee, my unfinished crossword, the dark wall of dead monitors, the green light on the door, and me. When I flip it, a tired man in a gray uniform with a face I barely recognize. One shadow. Mine. Falling exactly where it should, under the booth's overhead light, attached at my heels, obedient, instantaneous, ordinary. No arrival waiting. No shape that knows my name. And I'll be honest with you because I've been honest all night, and I'm not going to stop in the last minute of it. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means a man who chooses to look isn't the same as a man who's ambushed by his own reflection at the foot of the bed. Maybe the gap only opens for the people who don't know it's there, and naming it, understanding it, holding your own lens steady, and saying that's mine, I know what that is, maybe that's enough to close it. Maybe refusing to be afraid of your own arrival is the whole defense. And Reuben and Anita walked out into the dark because no one ever told them the shadow was only ever them. Or maybe I'm just in the blind room still. Maybe the booth protected me right up to the end, and the looking only counts if there was ever anything in here to see, and I'm a man congratulating himself in an empty room while the sun takes its time. I can't tell you which. I want to so badly, and I can't. That's the truth of being inside a thing. Instead of remembering it later, you don't get the ending explained. You just get the next minute and then the one after that. It's 3:02 a.m. The HVAC just ticked twice. The ice machine dropped a load. The building's breathing. The ordinary music is still playing. Faint under everything. And I'm choosing to take that as a good sign, because a man has to choose something to take as a good sign or he can't get to morning. I'm going to stay here in the dark with the monitors off. I'm going to wait for a shift change for the day crew for the first gray light in the high lobby windows. I'm going to keep my thumb over this lens and only lift it when I have to. And when the sun comes up, if it comes up, I'm going to walk out of this booth and out through that lobby past Reuben's empty chair and the phone off its cradle, and I'm going to go home, and I am going to cover every camera in my house. If you're still listening, do the same. Not because I can prove anything, I can't, but because it's a small thing and it costs you nothing, and somewhere out there, a parking lot is full of people who were lonely at 3 in the morning and saw a kind shape that knew their name. Don't walk toward it. It's only ever you, going ahead. Let your body decide whether to follow. This is Marcus Vale, Building Operations, St. Aldrich Regional. I'm still here. I'm going to stay still here.